So, greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in for the first module of the God Effect. And the very first module is the power of forgiveness. Now, the power of forgiveness, and I know we have heard a lot of things, we've heard a lot of different teachers, enlightened beings talk about forgiveness. And for me, it has been one of the hardest and the most beneficial tool that I have ever used. And I would have to say that it has been uh, the power, the thing that catapulted me to the next level. And even though it seems very easy for some people to hear about forgiveness and to say that I forgive you, I noticed for me that this was something in layers. And it's something that really I'm still learning about, but not as much so of when I first got in this um, process of forgiveness. And the reason why I say the process of forgiveness, so let me say this. In 2010, I started to work with someone, a very well known spiritual master. And this master was a master from the East. And when I first met him, his thing was forgiveness. He talked a lot about forgiveness. As a matter of fact, the very first workshop that I went to someone invited me to a workshop that he was doing, and it was so inspirational. The first part about spiritual healing, I was really with that aspect of it. And then he began to talk about, oh, look at that. I don't know if you all can see that. My lighting, the way my lighting is causing a shadow, two shadows, as a matter of fact, in the background. Um, Anyway, see how my mind is so easily distracted? That's the beauty of not taking yourself too serious. That has been a saving grace for me. So, forgiveness. This particular workshop that I went to, the master started talking about layers of forgiveness, and he started talking about forgiveness and past lives and the way that forgiveness works. And if you don't forgive, what happens then in the balance of the universe? So he said something that was so simple and so profound. He said that forgiveness brings inner joy and inner peace. And I know for many of you that may seem, okay, well, that's simple, but I didn't understand in the beginning how. How does it bring inner joy and inner peace? How does me forgiving someone for something, a wrong that I think that they have done to me, how does that bring me inner joy and inner peace? And if I don't have inner joy and inner peace, does that mean I have not forgiven this person? So, for example, one of the common um, things that people say, common phrases or mantras that people say is, okay, I forgive, but I don't forget. So if you think about that, I forgive, but I don't forget, it gives an indication that I'm still thinking about this thing. I remember what you did when you did it. When you did that thing and when you said that thing, I do remember that. It kind of has a different feel to it of actual forgiveness. As a matter of fact, for me, it doesn't seem like forgiveness at all. Um, and then I learned that forgiveness was not really about giving another person an excuse or giving them a pass for being or doing what they were being and doing, but it does give you permission to be at peace. It gives you permission and the allowance to carry on in spite of what this person has done to you. So, forgiveness brings inner joy and inner peace. There's a whole step to this thing that's way more serious than what I was led to believe. And I'm going to share that with you now in exactly what that did for me. So, like I said, forgiveness was the most important step in my journey of higher consciousness because I found out that when you don't forgive, it kind of takes on an energy of itself. It becomes a being, a stagnation in consciousness, which means I can't create farther than this thing that I can't forgive. And it doesn't matter what part of your life this fits in. And I want to give you an example of this. So I grew up in a home where there was domestic violence. So I was a child and, my parents had this thing of domestic violence. So I knew at the time that I had a lot of resentment and a lot of anger for my mother. Believe it or not, my stepfather, I had anger toward him, but not like I had for my mother. And as a child, the reason why I had this anger and this resentment is just like our parents. We depend on our parents to take care of us and to keep us safe and secure. And I felt as though being in this situation, I was not being safe and not being made secure. So as I got older, and of course, our relationship improved, just the nature of a person getting older. If you are a parent, you know that if you have a particular child or children, they sometimes you have to say no, and sometimes you have to give limitations and guidelines, and they don't like those so much, and they handle that kind of restriction in many different ways. So just the nature of your children growing up and leaving your home and having their own home, then the relationship tends to get better because the restriction is no longer there. So the relationship got better as far as that was concerned. But then I noticed that this resentment and anger started showing up in other areas of my life. So that is the thing with forgiveness and being able to forgive. Because once you release that and you're able to move forward in your life, in that particular area, it also frees you up to move forward in other areas of your life. And that was mind blowing for me. When I finally understood that, I didn't know or didn't realize at the time how me not forgiving my mother hindered me from being successful in business. But when you understand that everything is energy and everything is frequency, and no matter where it is, it will show up in everything else that is. So that is the power of forgiveness, and that power to really give you the strength that you need to move forward in life. So as we're on this, the God Effect Masterclass, this is an important step, and this is the most important step. And this is why I start here with the power of forgiveness, because you actually cannot access the God source power in such a low frequency as hate, anger, unforgiveness, resentment. All of those are very low frequencies. So we want to be able to release ourselves from being captive by that thing called unforgiveness. So as we move on a little bit more, I am going to do an exercise with you, the most powerful exercise that I have done to date on how to release anger, resentment, and be able to move forward into the God source power. So I want to just finish giving an example of this so you will know by looking at my story and listening to my story of how this may be showing up in your life. So, back to my mother, because I did not want to forgive her, I had so much anger and resentment pent up, and I did not know it. As I became a young adult and I moved forward in life, I did not know that I was angry about having to live in this situation and not um, really allowing her and giving her the choice to live in her power or not. And this is a choice that we all have, to live in our power or not. And each individual has to have that allowance to be in due as they see appropriate. And those of us who are watching have to have the allowance of letting people do that without judgment. So, how it started to show up in my life is in my relationships and in my business. So, for example, in my relationships, I associated an argument, facial expressions, all of that with me growing up as a child. And so, what I fought against was the very thing that I did not want to see, which is domestic violence in any form, whether physical or mental, emotional, spiritual. There are many types, forms, and fashions of domestic violence. So I don't want us to think that it's only physical abuse, but how this showed up in my relationships is I went all the way extreme left. So if you made a facial expression toward me, or you said something and your tone was a little higher than what I like, then I was always looking for an exit. This is, well, I don't have to deal with that. I'm out of here. I'm gone. And it really wasn't warranted, but that's the way I saw it in my mind. This is how this thing that I never wanted to see in my life, that's the way it kept showing up in my life. And if you follow my work, you know that I teach that anything that we agree and align with sticks us, and anything that we fight or resist against, it sticks us, which means it hinders us, it controls us, it makes us in effect and not cause over our lives. So we want to make sure that everything is just an interesting point of view. I'm not aligning with it or agreeing, and I'm not resisting or fighting against. It's just an interesting point of view. And when we can see that, then it stops us from adding on things that we have to release a little later as far as forgiveness is concerned. So I want to go over, there are levels and layers of forgiveness. And when I did this, I was finally able to release that anger and the resentment that I had for my mother, for really judging her and saying that, okay, you didn't do a good job at this, and I felt like this as a child, and I would have done it that way. So this is something that really helped me. And once I released this, like I said, my relationships were better. They improved. My business relationships were better and they improved, all because of this thing of holding on and being resentful and angry at my mother. And it was so phenomenal. And that's why I'm so excited about this practice that I'm going to share with you in a little bit, because you will also see how powerful it is and how it seems miraculous that you can forgive in one area and it will show up in another area, and you never knew that this was the thing that was holding you back. So forgiveness, levels and layers of forgiveness. So right now I want to talk about the levels. So a lot of us have, let's talk about personal. So personal forgiveness means that we have judged ourselves for something that we thought that we could have done better, um, or we didn't do something. We were not there for our child when the child had a baseball game, or they're going off to college and you start, oh, I could have did this better, or they end up in trouble, and then we tend to judge ourselves as parents that, oh, I could have done that better, it's all my fault. So personal forgiveness is something that is a must. And when you go through these practices, even if you think that, well, there's nothing that I have to forgive myself for, you will see how things will start coming up, which is a good thing. Things will start coming up to be released for you to let go of them and move forward in your life. And the levels I've found, are best done in this order. And that is when you forgive yourself and then you move forward to, family members and then other people, business relationships. But it has to start with self. If you don't realize how you are sabotaging yourself because of something that you have not forgiven, then you're really missing out on life. It could be so much better and so much bigger. The only thing that's stopping us from showing up and really just living life to the fullest, because a lot of us have this blockage about being undeserving. And that undeserving comes from something in the back of our mind that we feel as though we have done, and we don't deserve happiness. We don't deserve a good relationship. We don't deserve millions of dollars. And I want to give you this example. I was working with a client who had been molested at a very young age. And of course, she went on through life, and she would always get to a point where in business where she would just shut down completely. And I do an assessment when I'm working with someone, and this is something that she did not share with me in the beginning. And so as I'm working with her, I could not understand this particular blockage, why we would always get to a certain point and then she would tend to go backwards. And what she wanted was right there, and she wouldn't take it. She wouldn't receive what was right in front of her face. So as I worked with her a little more, and I picked up this energy, and I had to ask her, oh, had you ever been molested as a child? And she confirmed that yes, she had. So, but it wasn't the uh, anger from the person who molested her. It was the anger, the blame, the shame, and the grief from what she felt about herself for being in this situation. So she was a victim, but she was a victim to her own mind and her own the way she perceived herself after this incident happened. So if this happened to her, then she must be bad. She must have deserved it in some way. And I find a lot of this where people feel that have been molested, that feel like, okay, this must have been my fault some type of way. So after we cleared that blockage, I had to do some forgiveness practice with her. I had her do forgiveness practice with herself to go back to that particular incident, go back to being that little girl and nurture her and care for her. And most importantly, forgive her, and then forgive the older woman who was holding that little girl captive by saying that it was her fault and she must have deserved it. because you can't have a contrast thought like that in the same place. You can't have a thought and believe that you deserve it all, and at the same time believe you don't deserve it. So, and a lot of people don't realize that in their subconscious mind, underneath their awareness, they really feel as though they are not worthy to have the things that the conscious mind is asking for. You have this desire in the will to go and get those things that you desire, but it's not happening. And then we don't understand, well, why isn't it happening? Or why is it seems like it's right there. I can touch it, I can smell it, it's right there, but I can't seem to turn the page. I always get to this certain point, and right at that point, I can't seem to make it happen. I can't seem to have that breakthrough. And I have to tell you, and this is the most powerful thing, and it really set me free as an individual when I realized that there's nobody else that's blocking me. Nobody else is there, this warrant at the door, standing in front of the jail and holding the key and saying that you can't get out. No, the only warrant that's there holding the key is ourselves. We are the only ones that is stopping ourselves for not having or pushing ourselves forward. So the person that's behind the curtain and making all the sounds and, have this drama going on is us. And that was so powerful once I got that. So I am going to share that with you all in this practice a little bit later. So we have personal forgiveness and the power of personal forgiveness and taking back your strength, taking back your power by forgiving yourself for anything and everything. No judgments, no judgments of you on what it is that you do. It's just an interesting point of view. So the other thing is ancestral. Now, some people believe this, some people don't. There's an Asian mantra that says the the ancestors plant the tree and the descendants enjoy the shade. And what that means is that we are affected by our ancestors and what they have done. So if you think about how the universe works in general and the conscious stream, the total consciousness in the stream, you understand that there's a balance in the universe and everything is connected to everything else. Though we can decide what happens to us, there is an influence that affects us. And what in my studies and in my experiences, it has been my ancestors. So whether that's good or bad. So some people have, well, you can say lucky. They're lucky. There's not really such thing as luck, but to make this point, let's say they're lucky. They had not done anything to have a certain thing happen, but they're like magic. Every time you turn around, everything they touch turns to gold. Every endeavor that they embark on is successful, but you're looking at them and nothing that they've done seemingly would say that, okay, this is deserving of having all of this good fortune. Well, maybe it's something that their ancestors have done that was so phenomenal that regardless of what the descendant has done, a way of balance from their ancestors, they are able to receive the good benefit from what their ancestors did. So that is levels of forgiveness. So right now I want to talk about the layers of forgiveness and the practice that has to do with exemplifying the practice in life. And that's what we'll do. We'll talk about this mantra, about mantras. So, mantras are what the Asians call a gathering tool. So, a mantra is any word or phrase that's said, spoke, or sung in a rhythmic type of trance, if you will, but not a trance. But that's what a mantra is. So, a group of words or phrases that mean something that you say continually. And so, mantras are powerful because they can remove soul, mind, body blockages. So, there is a frequency. And if you have heard of Dr. Emoto, he wrote the book Hidden Messages in Water. And what Dr. Emoto found out is that water carries frequency. And what he also found out is words have a certain frequency. So when you speak certain words, you get a certain frequency. Now, simple but very profound. So when I say they remove soul, mind, body blockages, well, let's talk about what are soul, mind, body blockages. So let's start with body blockages. Body blockages are any type of sickness or illness that's showing up in the body. That's a blockage. For example, you think about pain. If you have pain anywhere in the body, there is too much energy in that particular area. So therefore, you are blocking the flow. Energy should move, be very fluid, no blockages. So whenever disease show up in the body, as a spiritual healer and teacher, I already know based on what the illness is, there's a spiritual blockage somewhere. And that's why I love working with the spiritual being, really bypassing the physical body and bypassing the mental body as well. Because as you will learn a little later on in the God Effect Masterclass, is that the soul is the boss and the soul is the determining factor of what's going on in our lives right now. And because we have had a transitional period with the whole planet where there has been a massive shift, and this shift has been from primitive, which means strictly desire, instincts, food, clothing, just basic instincts. And then we moved into mental power. And this was the technology age where computers were invented and all types of things and inventions were made to make man's life much easier and take us out of a primitive stage. So now we are what's called the soul light era. And I won't go into the soul light era right now, but it is the era of the soul, where the soul has taken over, and those who are able to access that higher frequency will be very successful in any and every area of their lives. So I want to go back to the soul, mind, body blockages. So I've already talked about body blockages, sickness, illness showing up in the body. Mind blockages are negative attitudes, having attachments. Those are mind blockages. Ego, all those are mind blockages. Jealousy, that type thing. Those are mind blockages. Mantras will help you come out of your mind blockages. And then, of course, there are soul blockages. And what soul blockages are is what we're dealing with right now. The aspect of what some people may call karma, or they're blockages that show up in your life that stops you from getting things that you may desire. So, in everything, the root cause is a soul blockage in your life. So, I want to share and emphasize a major forgiveness practice. So, forgiveness practice is the key to self clearing this karma, this cause and effect that we have in this polarity universe that we live in. So, negative karma, like I said before, is the root blockage of every aspect of your life, including your relationships, your finances, your businesses, and much, much more. And so, and you can find this information, a lot of detailed information in this book called Soul Healing Miracles. Soul Healing Miracles is a book, and the author is Dr. and Master Zhigong Shao. And you will see this in the PDF file that I will attach for the resources to tell you this, and also the practice. So let's go into the practice, this forgiveness practice. And I want you, if you're busy, if you're distracted, I want you to, you can listen to it now, but I want you to come back to it, to the forgiveness practice, where you can be quiet and you can calm your mind and really get the benefits of the forgiveness practice. So, to get in the personal, ancestral, this is the way I like to do this practice. So, you're going to calm your mind. And if you're good at meditating, you're going to go into a meditative state. You're going to go into the alpha state. And we're going to talk about alpha state and brain waves in the next module. But just know that a very calm state where you slow down the brain waves is normally that feeling when you first wake up in the morning or when you're falling asleep at night, your brain goes into the alpha wave. So you're going to relax yourself and you're going to calm the mind and you're going to go into this meditative state. So this is the way I like to do this practice. So once you get into this meditative state, you're going to call in your ancestors and you're going to call in your spiritual guides. Okay, and you can even call in the universe. And I'm going to give you an example of doing this where you can get the best effects out of this particular practice. And if you don't have like an open third eye, open spiritual eye, no worries, no big deal. You can see this in your mind's eye. You can use your imagination to get this done, and it has the very same effect. So we're going to say, dear my beloved soul, you're talking to yourself. I love you. Give yourself love. I love you. I honor you. And I appreciate you. Dear my ancestors, may you all please come and be with me as I offer this forgiveness practice. And if your third eye isn't open, you can see this in your mind's eye. So just imagine that you see all of the ancestors coming into the room with you. And then you can call in your heavens team, your guides. And what that simply is, and you can imagine who they are. Some people know who their guides are. Some people don't. No worries. You just imagine, who would you like to come? Um, would you like Jesus to come? Would you want Buddha to come? Um, Amitofu to come? Mary? Totally up to you. This is your practice. You do it the way you want to do it. So see in your mind's eye your heavens team and your guides coming. And you tell them as well, I love you. I honor you and I appreciate you and I thank you so much for coming. So when you do this in this meditative state, you'll notice that the energy, the frequency is so very high. And that's what you want. This is the state that's best to do the forgiveness practice in. And first you want to talk to yourself. Your soul that you called, I forgive you. You want to forgive yourself. And if something comes to mind in particular that you want to forgive yourself for, then you can say at this time, I forgive myself for judging myself. I forgive myself for not being a kind parent. I forgive myself for the hurt and the shame that I've carried all of these years for being molested. So everything that you can think of that you are ready to release right now, just go ahead and forgive yourself for that so we can move forward. And now that your ancestors are here, you want to call in all of the souls that you have ever hurt or harmed in any lifetime, including this lifetime, if they would please come. And in your mind's eye, you can see all the people that you've ever hurt or harmed in any lifetime. You can see them coming because you want to release. Remember what I said about cause and effect? What some people say, karma, a record of all of your deeds. We are infinite beings. Infinite beings. So maybe you're a good person right now, or maybe the last experience that you had as an infinite being was not so good. So we want to release and clear all of the hurt and the harm that we or our ancestors have ever done. So as you see all of the people coming that you've ever hurt or harmed in any lifetime, they're here. And you say, I understand that I or my ancestors have hurt or harmed you. And we are so very sorry for hurting and harming you and your ancestors. We understand that we may not have been always in the highest of love and light, and that we have done some things to hurt you. And we sincerely apologize for hurting you. Will you please forgive us? And just see, and if you meditate all the time, you will notice the shift in the energy, a shift in the frequency when so many things are being released. And you will have some of them that will forgive you, and you will feel that. And so whatever you do as a demonstration of that, whatever works for you. So for example, you could see all of these different cords from you to all of the people that you've hurt or harmed. And so just imagine with your mind's eye that all of those cords are just popping and releasing, and you are no longer connected to this person in this situation that you did to them and them to you, and you are free to move forward. Some people see it as a washing away, that you're in the ocean and you have a washing away. Whatever works for you, I'm just giving you an idea of the words that you can use. Now, what I normally do is I not only add people, I call in the places, the things, and the experiences that I may have done attributed to causing hurt and harm to anyone. It could be nature. I could be wasteful. It could be the trees, the planet, the earth, animals. So, but that goes into layers of forgiveness. So you have yourself, you have your ancestors, and it could also extend to stars, planets, galaxies, trees, certain places in the world, the ocean, like I said, the earth. So radical, extreme forgiveness. Simple concept, but so very powerful, where your life will never, ever be the same if you do this practice. Do this practice every single day and do it in the alpha state. It gets rid of the more. You always want to go back to the alpha state when you're doing this practice, and also in creating, which we will handle in the next module. So you want to offer forgiveness. You want to ask for forgiveness for anything that you have done to hurt or harm anyone. And then you want to say, those who have hurt and harmed me, I forgive you. I forgive you unconditionally. Because you don't want someone to forgive you unconditionally and then you can't forgive them unconditionally, right? There's no condition, because there's no right or wrong. It was just a perception that we had a right or wrong, and we're ready to release this. So after this practice, and then you want to see them forgiving you. Now I will say, some of this is in layers, and some of it you may not be willing or ready to forgive. And that's okay, because it will keep coming up until you release it. What a blessing that is. We have an opportunity to, at a later time, release and forgive. So do this practice, do it often, and watch the miracles that start to happen in your life. So we're going to close out this module, and I will see you in the next module, module 2. Greetings, everyone.